India's tower infrastructure industry has been instrumental in shaping the digital revolution, and the association has been a powerful force in the growth narrative. As the leading industry voice, DIPA has been at the forefront of advocating change and promoting growth for the industry for over 12 years now. Fast forward to 2025, we envisage all Indians connected to the power of internet. The monthly consumption is expected to increase threefold to 40 GB. The rapid growth will require building digital infrastructure to support the demand of data-hungry Indians. The session today is an endeavor to shape the dialogue on creating a robust digital infrastructure. Without further ado, may I please request Tilak Rajdua, Director General DIPA, to join us for a welcome address. Tilak Rajdua ji is a veteran in the telecoms industry and has been a significant force in spearheading DIPA's vision, including repositioning of the association. In his over 4-decade-long career, he has worked with telcos, industry associations, and international standardization bodies. Duaji has many milestones to his credit and has recently been awarded with Amity National Leadership Award for industry commitments towards green technology. Duaji, over to you.
Thank you very much, Parul. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to Honorable Minister of State for Communication, Shri Devasingh Chauhan ji, Dr. P.D. Waghela, Chairman TRI, Shri K. Rajaraman, IAS, Secretary DOT and Chairman DCC, Mrs. Janet White, Head of Public Policy, Asia Pacific GSMA, Jack Haddon, Head of Policy Research, Tower Exchange, Shri Narinjan Kumar Arya, IAS Chief Secretary, Government of Rajasthan, Shri Tejwahir Singh, IAS Private Secretary, Department of Commerce and Industry, Shri Akhil Gupta, Chairman DIPA, Shri Amit Sharma, Vice Chairman DIPA, Dr. R.S. Sharma, IAS CEO, National Health Authority, and Mr. Prashant Singhal, TMT Market Leader, Ernst & Young, and our media partners, Communication Today, community partners, Tower Exchange, Knowledge Partner. Very warm welcome. While addressing you all during the previous events last year, I was hoping that I would be able to meet many of you in person during the next event. However, the long tail of the COVID for almost 2 years now, and again the possibility of a third wave, indeed calls for caution. While the vaccination drive has gained momentum, let's hope that full normalcy restored within a year, even though the virtual format has enabled all to join the event from the safety of our home. I have to say, I do miss the intimacy and warmth of face-to-face interaction with you all. Hopefully, the pandemic will be behind us soon and we'll have opportunity to meet again at that time and not virtually. It has been another amazing year and a wonderful journey. We started in 2010 with the revolutionizing telecom scenario and the digitizing nation. There was a compelling need to reposition brand DIPA to align with future industry requirement, etc. DIPA has been constantly collaborating with state and central government authorities for alignment of the ROW policies, beside the resolution of the issues relating to power, disaster management, manpower movement. Telecom during an ever-changing dynamic industry has always been quick to respond to the demands of the nation as a whole. As the world has adjusted to the new normal, the requirements of the consumers have changed as well. Aligned with our fast developing and digitizing country, we have rebranded ourselves as DIPA, an industry representative for all digital infrastructure providers. I would like to thank DOT, TRA, and all the state governments for their constant cooperation, support, understanding, and prompt response regarding the issues faced by IP1s. What we are today, what we stand as an association, would not have been possible without members I would like to thank every one of our members for our constant support and faith in us throughout all these days. Thank you so much for being with us today. Stay safe and thank you very much. Over to Parag.
Thank you, Duaji, for such an optimist message. Next, we have a video clip highlighting decade of digital infrastructure industry and journey of DIPA to DIPA. Please take a watch.
Digital India has become a way of life.
तो आज कैबिनेट ने फैसला किया है 100% एफडीआई ऑटोमेटिक रूट में टेलीकॉम सेक्टर में अलाउ की गई है। ये रिफॉर्म्स पूरे के पूरे टेलीकॉम सेक्टर के फ्रेमवर्क को चेंज करने वाले हैं।
India is the largest democracy in the world, and IT and telecom make it more vibrant.
Telecom connectivity has now become lifeline of all economic activities. During the COVID-19 pandemic, telecom sector has shown how important its role was in the pandemic.
Telecommunication and ICT have emerged as the foundations of the global economy, and more importantly, during the challenging COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Moving on. DIPA and EY collaborated to develop a thought leadership report titled Digital Infraco Unlocking the Tower Power. To talk about this report, we have with us Mr. Prashant Singhal, Emerging Markets, Technology, Media and Telecommunications Leader at EY. Prashant drives EY's emerging markets growth agenda in a rapidly converging tech, media and telecoms construct. With over 2 decades of consulting experience, Prashant has implemented innovative strategies for fast-growing big tech segments, the Sunicons, the Unicorns, to long-established telecoms and technology players. Request Prashant to share insights on the role of TowerCos in fast-tracking the vision of Digital India. Over to you, Prashant.
Thank you. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. I don't know whether it's evening or afternoon, but somebody said that in Delhi, over the last 1 week, every day is every hour of the day is evening. So good evening, everyone, and good evening, Honorable Shri Chauhanji, Minister of State for Communications, Shri Waghela ji, Chairman TRAI, Shri Rajaraman ji, Secretary DOT and Chairman DCC, and Shri R.S. Sharma, CEO, National Health Authority of India, Shri Akhil Gupta, Chairman DIPA or DIPA, and Shri Amit Sharma, Vice Chairman DIPA, and my fellow panelists and speakers, as well as friends on this webinar. So I think we've done this paper. Maybe we can just have about a few slides, if you can just have the presentation up. But we've developed this paper on the outlook of digital infrastructure. I think the tower infrastructure is gone behind us, and now it's more about digital infrastructure. Sorry, can we just have the slides, please? Or somebody getting the slides? Thank you. I think if you can just go to the next slide. And if you can go on the presentation mode, full presentation mode, please. So I think a lot has been said about the digital revolution in India. I think we've seen almost 801 or 800 million broadband customers, of which 770 million are mobile customers or mobile broadband customers. The level of data consumption in India has grown substantially. It's almost 60 times over the last 4 years. We have moved from just about 0.15 GB per user to almost 15 GB per user currently. So we've just seen this data revolution, and what's happened is the pandemic has accelerated the data revolution, and thanks to the digital infrastructure which was already on ground, that we are all surviving and the economy is thriving. And that was all because of the vision of Honorable Prime Minister of making India a digital India and investing ahead of time into the sector. If we just move forward and roll forward ourselves 3 to 4 years, India can be a superpower when it comes to digital. We would be almost 1.1 billion or almost a billion subscribers. If you move to the next slide, please, we'll be almost a billion internet users. We would be over 1.3 billion mobile subscriptions, and we would have these currently the unicorns, which are almost 100 or nearing 100. We would see them at 150. Whether it's health tech, ed tech, consumer tech, I think India is leading the way, and we will see almost a 200 billion e-commerce market. We'll see a 12 billion education ed tech market. So I think India is innovating on digital, and for the entire digital revolution to happen, what is really important is that we have the digital infrastructure in place, both the physical infra as well as the intangible infra. And the physical infra is what companies which are today the tower companies and transforming themselves into digital infrastructure companies need to provide. This, if you just move to the next slide, I think this would require an investment of almost $20 billion over the next 3 to 5 years. And that investment will be in various parts to build this physical infrastructure for us to achieve what we want to achieve in the next 4 to 5 years. I think 5G is clearly something which is going to happen in India. We are behind, and we want to catch up, and therefore having a common infrastructure which is available of small cells, of fiber, of DAS, which can be shared, I think can provide a huge opportunity. If we look at just pure towers, I think India is expected to add another 250, 300,000 towers, and that would require an outlay of $6 to $7 billion. If we move to fiber, which is a clear extension of towers, and today just about 30-40% of the towers are fiberized, we need to make sure that there are about 70-75% of those which are to be fiberized, as well as fiber is available to home. The fiber route kilometers need to double itself, which would require an investment of almost $8 to $10 billion. And that gives a big opportunity to tower cos, or now the digital infrastructure companies. Can I just request people who are not speaking to please go on mute? Thank you. And then if we look at the small cells, and the small cells are going to grow at least 15 to 20 times, and this is going to be important for the 5G to be rolled out. That's an investment requirement of almost $3 to $4 billion, and revenue opportunity for tower cos or digital infrastructure of about $1 billion. If we look at in-building solutions, if you look at in-building solutions again, or DAS, they all require investments, and they require an opportunity for the digital infrastructure. Somebody will have to invest, and the digital infrastructure service providers are best suited to make those investments. These are not new concepts. Globally, companies who are in the tower business and transform themselves into digital infra business are doing it. Crown Castle, ATC, I think Crown Castle has got almost 30 to 40% of their revenues coming from dark fiber leases. They're also providing shareable small cells. DAS, ATC is doing that. So, I mean, I think in India we need to make sure that happens, such that this physical infrastructure is provided by the tower companies. They transform themselves into digital companies, and that infrastructure can then help the telcos to accelerate the services on 5G, on IoT much faster, which could then help us to become a truly connected digital nation. I think there are other opportunities for tower cos apart from the core that we talked about. I think they can, the network that they have, and when I say network, distributed asset network, there are multiple opportunities in adjacencies. Smart cities is another area where tower cos, because of every city is going to have multiple sensors, managing it, connecting it, maintaining it, for the digital infra service providers to do that. EV charging, I think in India we've got less than 2,000 EV charging stations, and our objective is to become, or the objective is to have about 3 million by 2030 because of the targets which have been laid on the number of electric vehicles that we want. And nobody better than the digital infrastructure companies to go and provide such services. Field maintenance, because of the distributed workforce, best suited. Power as a service, best suited. Advertisement, leveraging on the ground-based towers and combining it with digital advertisement, best suited. And another concept or another infrastructure need today is for most of the e-commerce companies, which is all these dark stores that they are putting in and investing in. And it's almost a couple of $1 billion of investment every year over the next 3 to 4 years. With again the decentralized asset management and sharing concept, which is there with the digital infra. These could be another opportunity to go for. I think we need to achieve that. We need to get $20 billion. Digital infra companies best to provide that in order to make India see 5G. But there are certain policy interventions which are required. I think if you just move to the next slide, I won't dwell into that a lot, but if you just move to the next slide. So these are some of the policy interventions or clarifications which are the scope of IP1. I think this was also part of the NDCP 2018, which was approved. I think that the scope needs to be enhanced. Some part of active infra sharing needs to be added so that it's not just restricted to towers and fiber, but also adds to IBS, to certain antennas, and some of the other active equipment should also become a part of the tower companies for sharing to allow both passive and active sharing. The ROW rules, I think that was shown in one of the slides earlier in the video. There are some states where it needs to be fully implemented. Street furniture policies have to again come out, get implemented, and some of the street furnitures need to be addressed. Things like overhead fiber, is it to be regulated, not regulated? I think that needs to be addressed. For small cells, it needs to be addressed. A couple of areas on GST. Most of the tower companies or digital infra companies don't get any credit on GST for tower shelter, and that constitutes almost 40 to 50% of their capex, maybe more. And there's no GST, and that cost then therefore gets moved on to the tower telecom companies, and it's an additional cost then or eats into the investment ability of the sector. I think that needs to be looked at. Property taxes, different municipalities have different rates that needs to get rationalized. And then, of course, availability of power for 24/7. I think this is very important, both from a customer service standpoint. So you need to make sure every site is up and running. And obviously there are backups and there are DG sets, but if electrification can happen through subsidized cost to the nearest towers. And then second, the tariffs could also become more industrial and not commercial to the tower cost or to the digital infra cost. I think that would help the country to really get to build the digital infrastructure which we need to achieve our objective of being a digital superpower, which we are, but maybe times 10 over the next 3 to 5 years. I think if you just go to the next slide, and this is the way we visualized how a digital infra co would look like and how they would manage each and every asset. I won't go through that, but clearly this is the transformation that is going to happen. We have a small video, a short video for the launch of our report. Can we just request the video to be played? In the video, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prashant, for this fairly insightful session. The digital copies of the thought leadership report will be shared on through the chat window and also circulated via email post the event. Moving on, we have with us Mr. Akhil Gupta, Chairman of DIPA and Vice Chairman of Bharti Enterprises. The man really needs no introduction. A visionary, a thought leader, Mr. Akhil Gupta has conceptualized and implemented many of industry first, including IT and networking outsourcing deal and the passive infrastructure sharing concept with the formation of Indus Towers. This concept is a global hallmark and an exemplary instance of industry collaboration. He continues to be the growth leader of Bharti's journey since inception and has played a critical role in growing the group both organically and through acquisitions worldwide. The recipient of numerous prestigious awards, he has also authored a management book, Some Sizes Fit All. Sir, may we request you to share a few words as inaugural remarks?
Thank you, Parul. Honorable Minister of State for Communications, Mr. Dev Singh Chauhan, Dr. Vaghela, Chairman TRAI, Mr. Rajaraman, Secretary DOT, Ms. White, Mr. Haddon, Mr. Niranjan Arya, Mr. Tejveer Singh, Amit Sharma, Prashant Singhal, my dear friends and colleagues from industry and media, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this annual event of DIPA, the Digital Infrastructure Providers Association. A special word of thanks and appreciation to our overseas guests, Ms. White and Mr. Haddon, for joining and addressing us today, and to a very dear Dr. R.S. Sharma, who, despite his extremely onerous duty at this crucial time as CEO of National Health Authority of India, has taken time to send us a video message which shows his continuing support to our industry, which he has guided so passionately during its very difficult times. Well, all of us at DIPA were hoping to see you all in person this year, but unfortunately we have to have yet another video conference. I sincerely hope that by next year, we will have COVID permanently behind us and we'll be able to meet you all personally. The critical role that the telecom industry today plays in every country and every economy is, I think, now unanimously acknowledged globally. The digital infrastructure providers, like the members of our association, play a crucial role all across the world in enabling service providers to give uninterrupted digital communication services, particularly in the most testing times and in the most challenging terrains due to ongoing natural disasters on one hand and the disruption which has been caused in the last few years by COVID, forcing work and study from home on the other. We, as an association, started out in 2010 as a representative body for tower infrastructure providers. We had just about 75,000 to 80,000 towers at that time, but are now the total tally in the country is over 650,000 towers, out of which over 450,000 are operated by our members. Our basic theme of sharing the infrastructure with all the service providers on a completely transparent and non-discriminatory basis has already resulted in savings for them running into billions of dollars in capex and in opex over the last decade. Besides, of course, contributing immensely and very significantly towards environment. Our members continue to be very actively engaged in investing in renewable energy and other energy saving solutions. I'm very pleased that in many ways, India can have the pleasure of being the pioneer in the concept of wide-based and open network infrastructure sharing, especially by bringing infrastructure owned by competing operators together under one roof, a concept which has now become a global norm across the world. I would like to thank all our members for their continued support and tremendous efforts in the wake of many difficulties throughout this wonderful journey, where they have collectively invested over $15 billion over the last decade in enabling very deep and robust digital infrastructure networks across India. After facing some very serious and existential financial issues for various reasons over the last several years, I am really pleased that the telecom service providers, with the help of recent relief package from Government of India, are now poised for healthy growth in coming years. As a major step, as we all know, India is now moving towards 5G, which will be a very significant step towards it becoming a major digital economy with focus on inclusive growth. With our commitment to infrastructure sharing, the infrastructure providers will continue to provide much needed capex and opex savings to the service providers as they roll out 5G networks. Equally important, such sharing, I believe, will reduce the go-to-market time for these technologies, making them quickly available to the public for use, particularly deep inside the country. I think it is crucial that technologies like 5G are not confined to main cities, and the benefit of those goes to every nook and corner of India. The infrastructure industry is poised for big growth with the advent of 5G, and thus we have expanded our scope from mere towers to complete digital infrastructure. This is reflected in our new identity at DIPA, that is digital infrastructure providers instead of DIPA, which was just the tower infrastructure providers earlier. As being presented, as already presented by ENY, who are the knowledge partners for this event, there are so many adjacent opportunities that await us, like fiberization and small cells, microwaves, backhaul infrastructure, small cells, Wi-Fi, IBS, and so on. These would, on a fairly realistic estimate, require $15 to $20 billion of investment over the next 4 to 5 years. I'm really pleased that our members are fully prepared to make these investments in the coming years. They are fully equipped with their infrastructure ready. So I think this is something we are all waiting for. Sincere thanks to Prashant for their white paper on this occasion and the presentation today. Let me take this opportunity to thank DOT, TRAI, and various state governments for their wholehearted support in encouraging the concept of infrastructure sharing. We have already been deeply engaged with them to ensure an even more intensive and expanded role for the telecom infrastructure industry as envisaged by NDCP. My gratitude to Mr. Arya, Chief Secretary, Government of Rajasthan, and Mr. Tejveer Singh, Principal Secretary, Department of Commerce and Industry, Punjab, for their support and encouragement in this mission and for their gracious presence today. On behalf of all my colleagues at DIPA, I would like to reiterate to all the dignitaries present here today our very deep commitment to contribute towards ensuring a truly digitized India in collaboration with telecom service providers, DOT, TRA, and the state governments, and with continuous support and learnings from GSMA, industry bodies like Tower Exchange, and industry experts like ENY. Thank you once again, all of you, for joining us today at this event.
Thank you so much, sir. We now welcome our chief guest for special address, Shri Devasinh Chauhan, Honorable Minister of States for Communications, Government of India. Shri Chauhan is a member of Parliament to the 16th Lok Sabha from Kheda, his birthplace in Gujarat. He is proponent of closing digital divide, need for indigenously designed, developed and manufactured 5G mobile network, e-governance, and ever-increasing importance of ICT during and post-pandemic era. He has had an illustrious political journey as member of Water Research Committee, IT Committee since 2015, and has been working as member in Standing Committee of Defence and Consultative Committee, Ministry of Food Processing Industry. Sir, may we request you to share government's perspective on the need for building robust infrastructure in the digital era?
Thank you. Namaskar. Good evening to all. Dr. R.S. Sharma, CEO, National Health Authority of India. Dr. P.D. Waghela, Chairman, TRAI. Sri K. Rajaraman, Secretary, DOT. Sri Akhil Gupta, Chairman, DIPA. Sri T.R. Dua, Director General, DIPA. Sri Prasad Singhal, members of DIPA, telecom experts, ladies and gentlemen. Telecommunication is not just a way to connect people and resources, but it plays very important role to strengthen the democracy. If a person in a remote village has connectivity, he can hold us accountable, which makes the democracy strongest. That is why government under visionary leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji is committed to take best of the telecom services to every person of more than 6 lakh villages. A robust telecommunications network requires equally robust telecom infrastructure. It is not only critical but also a strategic foundation for the growth and development of telecom network and digital transformation. Digital infrastructure provides Association DIPA, represents an important segment of this vital industry. COVID pandemic has brought enormous changes in the world since last 2 years. Virtual meetings, video conferencing, work from home, and many other online functioning has become part of our daily life. During above crisis, telecommunication networks has performed very well. In fact, the performance of telecommunication was better in terms of usage and operations. This highlights the robustness and the capacity of our Indian telecom network and our telecom infrastructure. It is not only among the best, but it is also among the largest. We have the second largest customer base with 1.3 billion mobile telephone subscribers and 800 million broadband subscribers. The growth of the network since 2014 has been unprecedented. During this period, the number of BTS has from 8 lakhs to 23 lakhs. It is not only the network that has expanded, the usage has also grown exponentially. Usage has increased from 370 minutes per subscriber per month to 813 minutes. The data usage increased from 0.2 GB per subscriber per month to 15 GB. What is more satisfying is that while the growth of network was northward, the prices of telecom facilities has been going southward. The data tariff per GB has gone down from 100 rupees in year 2014 to less than 10 rupees. Thus, India has witnessed a revolution in telecommunication sector during the last 7 years. This also underlines the huge success of the policies of the government of India. It's well-known fact that when telecommunication grows, nation grows, and the livelihood of the people grows. The country has witnessed phenomenal growth of the sector and also its impact on the growth of economy. The government of India is not only focusing on the length and breadth of the network, but it is also been stressing on the depth of telecom coverage. That is why the Honorable Prime Minister has mandated us to provide fiber to all 6 lakhs villages of the country by August 2023. The Department of Telecommunication has worked out the plan and will meet the target. The government recognizes the role of every stakeholders for their contribution in phenomenal growth of telecom servicing, including that of infrastructure providers. To provide much needed support to the sector, the government has come up with telecom reforms under the dynamic leadership of the Honorable Minister of Communication and IT and Railways, Sri Ashwini Vaishnav. These reforms have infused a new vigor in the industry and has created an environment for truth. I can also assure you that this is not one-off exercise. The Modi government will continue to charter the path of reforms in the sector, which will take the entire industry to the next level. Honorable Prime Minister has always been emphasizing on Atmanirbhar Bharat. In the area of telecom manufacturing, a revolution has already begun. Our Indian telecommunication companies have successfully tested 4G mobile communication network elements. Soon, BSNL will deploy all indigenously manufactured 4G mobile network. Department of Telecommunication has also been at the forefront of development of 5G technology in the country, and results are quite exciting. It is expected that by third quarter of this year, we will have indigenously designed, developed, and manufactured 5G mobile network. My ministry has also launched the Productivity Linked Incentive PLI scheme for encouraging and developing telecom and networking products in the country. The uniqueness of this scheme is that MSMEs have been given equal opportunity to take part. Scheme will attract investment for major global companies. It is expected that 31 companies will invest more than 3,300 crores in next 4 years. It will generate incremental employment for more than 40,000 people with an incremental production of around 1.82 lakh crores over the 5 years. The aim is also boost domestic research and development. We have thoughtfully decided to have a contemporary and relevant theme of robust digital infrastructure, key to digital transformation for your annual event. As I have already mentioned that the country has been witnessing exciting development in telecom sector on the forefront of induction of new state-of-the-art technology and market-friendly reforms. It also means that there exists fantastic opportunities for telecom infra companies. 5G mobile network will soon be rolling out in the country. This technology will be served through small cell. Thus, we require infra at an enhanced level. I am aware that right of way, ROW charges, support from the local government, protection of telecom installation are some of the worries of the sector. We have taken cognizance of the same and therefore the department has been instructed to take necessary steps to address the above worries of the infra providers. The government is committed to take care of concern of all stakeholders, including infra companies. At the end, I would like to ask you that to deliberate on strategies and best practices to ramp up the quality of telecom infra to make it in the best in the world. I would like to take this opportunity to thank DIPA who afforded me an opportunity to interact with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the promising talk on the next wave of growth in the sector. Next up, for keynote address, we are delighted to have with us Dr. P.J. Vakela, IAS Chairman TRAI. Dr. Vakela assumed the role of Chairman TRAI in October 2020. He believes in creating a flexible, adaptive, and light-touch regulatory ecosystem. Prior to working with TRAI, Dr. Vakela worked as Secretary in the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. During his tenure, he launched ambitious schemes and has been at the helm of policy changes in the sector. In 2018, Dr. Vakela was honored by Honorable Prime Minister of India, Excellence in Public Administration, while appreciating his contribution in implementation of GST in India. Sir, may we request you to share your perspective on digital infrastructure?
Thank you very much. Sri Devshiji Chauhan, Honorable Minister of State for Communication, Government India, Sri K. Radharaman, Secretary DOT, Sri Akhil Gupta, Chairman DIPA and Vice Chairman Bharti Enterprise, Sri Narendra Kumar Arya, Chief Secretary Government of Rajasthan, Sri Tejveer Singh, Principal Secretary Department of Commerce and Industry, Government of Punjab, Sri Miss Janet White, Head of Public Policy, APMC, GSM. Good afternoon, ma'am. Mr. Jack Haddon, Head of Research, APSC, T.R. Dua, Director General of DIPA, all the participants and media. At the outset, I should appreciate DIPA for organizing an annual event with a very, very important theme, that is digital infrastructure. I thank the organizer for inviting me to this event for sharing my views on the subject. Thank you, Prashant, for making excellent presentation and delineating very, very important aspects of creation of infrastructure in the country. The digital economy incorporates all economic activities that are either reliant on or significantly enhanced by use of digital infrastructure, digital technologies, and digital services and data. Digital economy in India is all set to become a major player in the international value chain system. The digital value chain is evolving rapidly with new technologies which have potential to cause major disruptions. These technological disruptions are also introducing new services, new players, and many times forcing exit of the old players. Naturally, this requires policies and regulations which facilitate handling of technological disruptions and allow stakeholders to seize opportunities available from such technological disruptions. In addition to robust R&D and innovative ecosystem, Availability of reliable, feature-rich and highly capacitive digital infrastructure can absorb needs of the new technologies that caters not only to the common citizens of the country, but also of the Indian businesses and enterprises. Also, global lockdowns has exposed the huge digital gap between countries and within societies like never before. Lack of infrastructure and access to services is one of the key challenges to curb the digital divide. It is therefore imperative that a robust digital infrastructure is provided in all parts of the country, including commercial, residential, industrial, and government buildings and complexes. If India's advantage of huge skilled manpower in IT is adequately supported by robust digital infrastructure, we can fix all the missing pieces which are required to usher in Industry 4.0. For success of Atmanirbhar Bharat dream, it is necessary that the new generation production facilities should have capabilities based on host of new age technologies. Indian infrastructure providers in India, they have done very well over the years with some innovative initiatives in infrastructure sharing. And DOT also has come out with positive policy changes and positive programs with regard to facilitating infrastructure growth in the country. And for creating a robust digital infrastructure, there are certain challenges that will be required to be addressed on priority at the level of centers, states, and local authorities. Some of the challenges have been presented by Prashant. Availability, for example, of spectrum on demand for fixed wireless and backhaul is very, very vital. And this on-demand availability of this spectrum is required. And also, robust ecosystem for data center is required. And TRI has come out with a consultation paper on this, and we'll be giving our recommendation. Online permission of power, especially with regard to deployment of cells, it becomes very, very critical. And this kind of permission should be given, online and in a time-bound manner, because the deployment of cells is going to be huge in number, and the present system of giving permissions of power will not be adequate at all. So another 4 important challenges which I'll be talking slightly and I will deliberate slightly more is overhauling, adoption and legal enforceability of ROW rules 2016, then using strict furniture for digital infrastructure, creation and co-sharing of infrastructure. And last is very important, is creation of ecosystem for in-building solution. So I will this. The first challenge, that is need of universal adoption and providing for legal enforceability of ROW rules in states and up to the local authority is highly required. In August 2020, TRI has released its recommendations on roadmap to promote broadband connectivity and enhance broadband speed. I know that, and I understand that DOT is considering these recommendations very seriously. And this recommendation basically, deals with, redefinitions of the broadband, then speed enhancement, promoting connectivity through innovative infrastructure creation. And it also addresses issues of right of way, fixed line proliferation, cross-sector collaborations, common duct policy, sharing of infrastructure, increasing scope of infrastructure providers. And in all these the suggestions we have given in a very, very, detailed manner. We also have recommended a national right of way portal, and within a year, and to facilitate expeditious rollout telecom and other essential utilities infrastructure. We have suggested that we should incentivize the establishment of common duct and post for fiberization of networks through our policy on this. We expect DOT will accept these recommendations at the earliest. Second challenge, which again is very important from the point of view of 5G, is street furniture like electrical poles, traffic lights, billboards, and bus shelters for the deployment of the small cells and aerial OFC for the this 5G rollout. Adoption of new age technology will require support of 5G networks, especially in high capacity bandwidths and low latencies to work efficiently. It is a well-known fact that 5G network will require a lot of small cells to meet the requirement of both coverage and capacity in high frequency bands. Industry 4.0 will also have to be supported through small cell based next generation networks. However, deploying millions of small cells, as I mentioned earlier, it involves huge investment, and the process of permissions are at present time consuming. The use of public street furniture will obviate the need to have greenfield deployment of towers or poles for small cells, thus bringing down the capital expenditure requirement for TSPs, IPS, and will save a lot of time. For 5G or any other capacity, high capacity broadband, India needs to improve fiberization of sites, which is unfortunately hovering around 30%. For rapid optical fiber deployment, we need to find a deployment model which is light on capex opex requirements. This will also need to, there will be need to focus on the deployment of overhead fibers using street furniture to solve the backhauls issue. There are some challenges using the street furniture for small cell and optical fiber deployment, which include local body permissions, power availability, excessive fees imposed on the deployment, restriction in form of areas and buildings. These issues need to be addressed through proper planning, regulatory support, and cross-sectoral collaborations, especially at the ground level, involving local bodies and area authorities. As small cells will be deployed in bulk, conventional methods of dealing with ROW permissions on a case-to-case basis may not work at all, and we will require permissions, mass permission or bulk permission. State authorities and DISCOMs should put in place mechanism for allowing bulk permissions. DOT has recently issued an amendment to ROW rules prescribing various investment-friendly terms and conditions for laying overhead and aerial fibers. This is the right step forward. State governments and other authorities controlling the street furniture can consider identifying and cataloging street furniture in their areas. They should also earmark dedicated spaces in public assets like public buildings, post offices, buses, and railway stations, and allow service providers to deploy small-scale architecture there. We has taken a lead, and we have formed four groups to take up 4 pilot projects involving a smart city, 1 metro, a port, and an airport. And we will prepare some sort of guidelines for the state government and local authorities how they should go about making the plan so that each and every telecom operators and other people who want to put up infrastructure gets access to this kind of furnitures. I'm happy that TRI is working with a forum of Indian regulators in this respect. FOIR has formed a working group on cross-sector collaboration for use of infrastructure of the power and telecom sector for mutual benefit. The group has already given a report, and this report is likely to be considered very soon. And I hope that CRC will be issuing necessary guidelines to the state regulatory authorities and to implement these recommendations. Coming to the third challenge which requires attention is how we can promote co-sharing and co-creation of infrastructure by various infrastructure authority agencies. Digital infrastructure creation is capital intensive and returns cannot be ensured unless several players share the same. TRI has recommended that passive as well active infrastructure sharing should be allowed under the Internet Service License and Internet Service Authorization under Unified License and VNO licenses. DOT has accepted and amended the terms and condition of ISP license to permit active infrastructure sharing. However, it seems that the permission to share active infrastructure among service providers is limited to backhaul and Wi-Fi. This requires to be amended, and I would request Secretary DOT sitting here just very small amendment. What we had recommended, I think there is some that has been missed out. In addition, sharing of 5G cell sites can be encouraged for further cost reductions. TRI is also examining a reference by DOT on the possibility of allowing sharing of core network elements also. Sharing of any infrastructure is always facilitated when it is deployed and owned by neutral third parties. And infrastructure players have helped in sharing of passive infrastructure in a very, very, very effective manner. And ours is a case which is many times referred when I attend the international seminars and conferences. So realizing that infrastructure players can play a crucial role in increased sharing of active infrastructure as well. TRI has recommended enhancement of scope of IP registration in March 2020. This, I'm sure that DOT will consider this positively and it will be implemented at the earliest. Digital asset repository and mapping of utilities through GIS will ensure proper planning and is necessary for facilitating sharing of infrastructure across service providers and sectors. Accordingly, TRI in August 2000 has recommended that the passive infrastructure available in the country should be mapped by each service provider and infrastructure provider using GIS. TRI has also recommended that to facilitate leasing and trading of passive infrastructure, government should enable establishment of e-marketplaces for this purpose. and early implementation of this recommendation will also be, a great step forward. Now, let me talk about the fourth challenge and the last one that needs to be addressed is creating a robust infrastructure, that is how to facilitate faster rollout and deployment of digital connectivity inside the building. IBS is going to be very, very important because, in India, not much, we have not given much attention. Actually, in 5G, indoor coverage is likely to be less as high frequency bands will be used and these waves do not penetrate far. While we all discuss 5G use cases, there is hardly any discussion on the challenges of getting 5G to work well indoors, especially for more demanding use cases. A holistic approach will be required to ensure availability of digital infrastructure in the building complex, and that also in a very, very non-discriminate manner. At present, there is a huge problem in getting access to the buildings and by the infrastructure providers, the TSPs and other players. I will be, we have already prepared a consultation paper, and very soon we are going to come out with, we are going to come out with recommendation to how we should go about creating an ecosystem in the, in this thing. This will require changing the building bylaws and working with the states very closely. So, in conclusion, I would say that the India is well placed to reap the benefits of digitalization. Digital India rides on robust digital infrastructure. Initiatives like Digital Identity Program, Financial Inclusion, Cloud Services, UPI, National Knowledge Network, and for that matter, any digital delivery service platform, they all are dependent on robust and fast underlying digital connectivity. We all need to collaborate and work together to ensure that digital infrastructure is allowed to be deployed in an affordable and timely manner and is also shared across sectors. I believe, that in the next phase, the action will shift to the states and to the local level, to the cities and towns and villages. I think they are going to be vital when it comes to rolling out of the 5G and allowing the cells to be deployed by using various street furniture, buildings, and other things. I think our time will come that revenue consideration for the states and local authority may become secondary, and a telecom infrastructure will become as important as the as electricity, water, and gas. I can dream that this should happen as soon as possible, because otherwise also, if a state or city or a town, if they neglect the telecom infrastructure, they may lose investment, which will be investment in industries and service tertiary sector, which will be more dependent on the technologies and which will require 5G. 5G capabilities, and 5G capabilities, you require a strong telecom infrastructure. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important event, and I'm sure we all together can do a wonder for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing perspective on imperatives of Atmanirbhar India dream and pillars of growth for digital infrastructure. Thank you very much once again. Moving on, we are delighted to have with us Shri K. Rajaraman, Secretary DOT and Chairman DCC. Shri Rajaraman took over the role of Secretary DOT in October 2021. He was previously working as Additional Secretary Investments in the Department of Economic Affairs. He has played key role in the areas such as investment protection treaties, overseeing the National Investment Infrastructure Fund. He has also worked towards fostering economic relationships worldwide, particularly G20 and BRICS countries. Sir, may we request you to share your perspective?
Thank you very much. And Honorable Minister of State for Communications, Shri Devushan Chauhan ji, Shri P.D. Waghela, Chairman TRI, Shri R. Sharma, CEO of National Health Authority, Shri T.R. Dua, DG of DIPA, Mrs. Janet White of GSMA, Jack Haddon of the Tower Exchange, Mr. Prashant Singhal from EY, and Mr. Akhil Gupta, Chairman of DIPA, and all the international and domestic participants of this conference. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all the participants of this conference. First of all, let me congratulate Chairman DIPA and the Director General for transitioning to the new brand DIPA this year. This has brought new hope for the sector as it looks forward to rollout of new technologies, including 5G, wherein DIPA is going to play a very crucial role for developing desired digital infrastructure. The release of the white paper on InfraCo by the Honorable Minister is a great initiative. DIPA is doing great work in policy development and addressing of operational issues being faced by the telecom infrastructure providers. I'm informed that India has been one of the leading players in infrastructure sharing due to the pioneering efforts of DIPA and its members. Shared economy is the way forward to cutting costs and lowering the price of customer services. Looking back all these years, I realized that the period correlates with the time frame when the telecom infrastructure has grown the fastest. Within the last decade, we have seen technology evolution from 2G to 3G and 3G to 4G, and now 5G is around, and we have 6G scoping in progress. The continued technology evolution has led to the adoption of broadband services by the masses, as mobile and fixed line broadband penetration now stands close to 60% in India. India is one of the few countries where the enhanced broadband speeds have not been affected by the pricing of internet data services. Rather, the tariff per GB has gone down, as the Honorable Minister had stated, and this augurs well for the citizen who have benefited from the rapid proliferation of internet-based services. Broadband services enabled by the robust telecom infrastructure have brought jobs to millions in the country and have also created a strong ecosystem for the startup culture in India. There is need to take all measures to reduce the costs of operations for telecom licensees through innovative means, including infrastructure sharing, both active and passive. There is also a need to enhance the ease of doing business for service providers. Telecom Reforms Package of September 2021 announced by the Government of India was a step in this direction. Honorable Prime Minister has launched a massive compliance burden reduction program through which over 22,000 compliances across various sectors have been reduced over the last 1 year. Department of Telecommunication has so far reduced 87 compliances and is working on further measures, simplifying procedures and eliminating unnecessary compliances. Department of Telecommunications has invested in a 5G test bed at a cost of about $30 million, and the test bed is ready for use of the companies in development of 5G products and services. The Honorable Minister of State has been working very hard with the industry partners to facilitate expansion of production of 5G equipment in India under the $1.5 billion, that is rupees 12,000 crore production-linked incentive scheme, under which 31 companies are in the process of expanding or setting up new production facilities. With the continued growth of data services, the telecom infrastructure at the back end also needs to be upgraded continuously. Telecom networks have been providing the necessary business continuity during the pandemic. Millions of our citizens are working from home, and businessmen have been carrying on businesses digitally while receiving digital payments. India's digital payments system, the UPI, has been of a great support. Honorable Prime Minister has been very emphatic that the digital backbone and the internet access must be inclusive and reach out to every nook and corner of the country. The Universal Services Obligation Fund, operated by the Department of Telecommunications, has been implementing projects to enable rollout of mobile and fiber access projects in rural and remote areas. In order to support the capability of new technologies like 4G and 5G in the access side, telecom towers have to be fiberized to support the huge bandwidth of new technologies. And despite various improvements in the microwave networks, sufficient bandwidth may not be still available. With the upcoming 5G rollout in India towards the end of the year, there is a lot of work to be done in rollout of enabling standard infrastructure, both active and passive. This includes need for greater tower fiberization to support better quality of services as well. The government is keen to accelerate implementation of the National Digital Communications Policy of 2018. State broadband committees have been formed under the chairmanship of chief secretaries in all the states and union territories. I'm happy to see my colleague, Mr. Niranjan Arya, and Mr. Tejveer Singh from the Rajasthan and from the government of Punjab on this call. I'm sure that they are playing a very important role in unlocking the difficulties that DIPA faces in setting up infrastructure. I'm happy that DIPA, as a member of these committees, has been contributing significantly. The progress in getting right-of-way hurdles removed under the broadband mission is heartening. DIPA has been of great support for collaboration between states and the center. They have made their presence felt at the state level and played a very major role in alignment of our ROW policies, besides the resolution of issues relating to power, disaster management, and manpower movement during the crisis. I would also point out to the consistent efforts from DIPA, as a result of which we have almost 32 states which have aligned their right-of-way rules along with that of the DOT rules of 2016. Department of Telecommunications has also sought suggestions from TRAI on certain other policy aspects of the NDCP, like unbundling of network elements, broadband speed, and also on addressing various ROW challenges, including deployment of small cells using street furniture. We have received some of the recommendations, and we are working very hard on enabling them to take off very soon. The next decade will also be full of opportunities, with the 5G and 6G ushering in new use cases, technology solutions based on IoT, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, machine-to-machine communications, etc. Contactless solutions would, based on IoT, Industry 4, robotics, and automation, would create huge requirements for upgradation and augmentation of telecom infrastructure. Going forward, we hope that DIPA will continue to support the government in new policy initiatives like the National Broadband Mission, Broadband Readiness Index, fiberization of towers, common duct policy, GIS mapping of optic fiber cables, and connectivity infrastructure, etc., which will be a backbone for success of programs like the Honorable Prime Minister's Gati Shakti. I wish DIPA a bright future ahead, and I'm sure we will continue to get the association's support in executing various policies and ambitious programs of the government. Jai Hind and thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, we have a video address by Dr. R.S. Sharma, IAS CEO, National Health Authority of India. Dr. R.S. Sharma is the CEO of National Health Authority that implements Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission and Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, two flagship health missions of the Government of India. He's also the chairman of Empowered Group of Vaccine Administration for COVID-19 and a member of National Expert Group of Vaccine Administration for COVID-19. Prior to NHA, he served as a chairman of TRA and also spearheaded India's landmark biometric program for citizens, the Aadhaar project. May I please request to play the video message?
Well, good afternoon, friends. First of all, let me thank DIPA, that is the Digital Infrastructure Providers Association, which was earlier in my time when I was chairman of TRAI, was known as DIPA, Tower and Infrastructure Providers Association, for inviting me to this annual flagship event of theirs. Though I'm no more in TRAI, but fortunately I still remain, working in the digital space, and certainly digital infrastructure is one of my one of the topics which is very close to my heart, and I feel that whatever be the softwares and services and other kinds of things, ultimately they have to ride on the digital infrastructure, and unless you have a robust digital infrastructure, you will not be able to have a very successful Digital India program. So that is why, if you recall, the Digital India program was conceptualized by our Honorable Prime Minister, and there were 3 layers of that program. So the first layer was robust digital infrastructure as a utility to citizens. So we realized that unless you have a digital infrastructure in place, which is in term largely means the telecommunication connectivity, broadband, etc., you will not be able to have any meaningful digital India, programs of software services or citizens empowerment. The other layer was the software and services on demand, and the third was citizens empowerment. So I think that is so digital infrastructure is actually a prerequisite for any successful program. And I must also compliment the DIPA for actually starting this concept, which was the first in the world, about sharing of the towers. So essentially, this whole issue of now I'm told the average tenancy per tower is more than 3, which is actually a great achievement, because ultimately, if you look at it, there are only 3 major operators, and besides the BSNL and MTNL. So I think it's very good that all the 3 operators and everybody is now collaborating to actually ride on a common digital infrastructure, a common tower infrastructure, which actually serves the nation. And now I'm told there are 6.5 lakh towers, and obviously there are 20 lakh approximately those points which are riding on these towers. So that's one part. Also, I would like to share with you that India has done a tremendous amount of leapfrog when it comes to digital things. For example, we had created a digital identity way back, about 10 years back, and now that identity is bearing tremendous amount of fruits in terms of the DBT, or in terms of other kinds of KYC, for example, for getting mobile connections. So you have 1.3 billion digital identities, and we have had 60 billion, authentications thus far. We have had about 10 billion electronic KYCs, which have been used for opening bank accounts, for opening the SIMs, getting the SIMs, etc. So that's one great achievement India has done. We have done a wonderful work in the payment space. That's another, very, very flagship program which we have done. Recently, we have introduced, the Honorable Prime Minister has introduced the concept of e-rupee, which is actually a person-specific and a purpose-specific instrument, whereby the DBT can be more targeted for a specific. So that's another very important, step which has been taken. Similarly, look at more recently COVID. India actually administered the world's largest program. We have how many? About 1.6 crore, 1.6 billion, doses have been administered. This is a huge number. I don't think any country in the world will actually cross that number. So this is, and this has been done in a very, very orderly manner. So India has shown, for example, COVID as a platform. It has ensured a very transparent, a very, very orderly way of vaccinating people. So that's something which we have done. I also want to share with you the work which we at the National Health Authority, which is my current role, which we are doing. So for example, while we have created horizontal platforms like Aadhaar, electronic KYC, digital payment, electronic signature, etc., we are now foraying into areas which are domain specific. So for example, you now have a concept of open network for digital commerce, ONDC, which is being promoted by the Department of Ministry of Commerce. Similarly, now in the health space, the Honorable Prime Minister has launched a program on 27th of September last year, that is 2021, a couple of months back, which is the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. And the whole purpose of that program is to ensure that we leverage the digital infrastructure and digital infrastructure to deliver services in a more ubiquitous manner, with more quality and with more affordability. So accessible, affordable, and quality health services can be delivered by using the digital infrastructure. And there also the role of DIPA will be very, very critical, because if we are able to have broadband connectivity at each level, because you will require teleconsultation, the digital consultations will be required, and that will require connectivity again. So I think connectivity is a very, very critical ingredient to the success of any program, and digital and the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission is no exception to that. Similarly, there are other efforts also. For example, digital tourism mission. The Honorable Prime Minister has constituted a group called National Digital Tourism Mission. So there are many domains now in which we are now carrying out systematic programs, which again will use the digital infrastructure. And I think there are other things like, for example, the Wi-Fi network, which is PM Vani program, which is there, which will use the digital infrastructure. Broadband connectivity is coming now, and I'm sure DIPA is going to play a very critical role in that. So I think digital infrastructure is ultimately responsible. If India has to leapfrog, and India is leapfrogging in the delivery of digital services, then digital infrastructure is very, very necessary. And I want to compliment the DIPA and all their members for making that happen. I am sure the right of way policies and many other policies which were in the works at the time when I was in TRAI, they have all been sorted out or are being sorted out in that sense. So I think we are paving the way, and of course now 5G is coming, and thereafter I think we will have to have more densification of the networks and more ubiquitous. The throughput will go up, the latency will go down, and of course there will be a huge machine-to-machine communication. A lot of areas of artificial intelligence, machine learning, everything will develop, but will develop around the digital connectivity. So once again, I want to congratulate DIPA for their annual Flagship event, which is the robust digital infrastructure is a key to digital transformation. Robust digital infrastructure is a key also, I want to thank them for inviting me to address. Also, I want to thank them for inviting me.
Moving on to the next segment on global perspective, joining us today is Ms. Janet White, Head of Public Policy, APAC GSMA. Ms. White provides public policy support for MNOs across APAC on telecoms, data privacy, spectrum, 5G, IoT, and competition policy. Before joining the GSMA, she ran a telecoms, media, and technology consultancy firm where she led a wide range of projects, including development of fixed broadband strategies and business plan for mobile operators across Asia. Ma'am, if you can share your perspective on digital infrastructure in Asia Pacific, please.
Thank you very much. Would it be possible to put up the slides, please? Ashish, could you put up the slides? Well, let me start off anyway then. First of all, thank you so much for such a very warm welcome from everybody at DIPA and all the speakers. I felt really welcome to participate in this event. And GSMA is also very proud to have the opportunity to make some comments. So it's my pleasure to provide a global perspective on digital infrastructure as the key to digital transformation. Next slide, please. No infrastructure has reached more people more quickly than mobile, and the numbers speak for themselves, with mobile penetration at 67% and now reaching more than half the world's population with mobile broadband. The GSMA estimates that mobile operators will invest 900 billion in capex alone for the period 2020 to 2025. 80% of this will be on 5G. In 2020, the mobile technologies and services generated over 4.4 trillion of economic value added, which represents around 5.1% of GDP. This figure will grow to 4.8 trillion by 2025 as countries increasingly benefit from the improvements in productivity and efficiency brought about by the increased take-up of mobile services. In April 21, the mobile sector was credited by the United Nations for achieving a critical breakthrough towards its mission of combating climate change, being the first major sector to achieve this rigorous criteria set by the UN's Race to Zero campaign, which demonstrates the commitment and leadership of mobile operators in the push to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. Now, I noticed that these slides are quite small there. I'm very happy to share those slides and, if you want to look at those numbers in detail. So the next slide, please. At the Q3 2021, 162 operators in 64 markets had launched mobile 5G. 15 operators globally offered commercial 5G services on a standalone network. And by the end of 2021, an additional 20 operators should have launched or transitioned to standalone networks, with Asia Pacific accounting for half of these. Next slide, please. In many countries, particularly in emerging markets, mobile technologies are really the only way that many people can be connected. The mobile industry does have a role to play in connecting citizens and a duty to do our part, but we cannot do it alone. Policymakers and regulators have a role to play by ensuring an enabling policy environment. For example, as we've heard, the announcements of a series of reforms towards the end of last year for the Indian telecom sector represents a game changer for both the digital and wider economy. While these reforms are a critical first step in helping the country to meet the digital India vision, now it will be important that the government builds on them to ensure the long-term sustainability of the sector. This will enable 5G to play a central role in India's effort to become a 5 trillion economy. As you can see on the slide, there are a range of regulatory levers that can accelerate mobile and in particular 5G infrastructure. In the interest of time, I'm just going to highlight a few. Firstly, spectrum policies that encourage investment, as well as a full spectrum roadmap for the future, are crucial. This means timely assignment of spectrum, both for access and backhaul, setting reserve prices for spectrum at affordable levels to incentivize investments. For the full potential of 5G, spectrum is needed across low, mid, and high bands. The 3.5 gigahertz range has been the launching point for 5G. As of last summer, around 80% of 5G launches had been carried out in mid-band spectrum, mainly between 3.3 and 4.2 gigahertz. After assigning 5G launch bands, there are then two main areas being addressed by regulators, either maximizing the 3.5 gigahertz range for mobile or looking elsewhere, which often means 6 gigahertz. The second thing I'd like to point out, and I think this has been mentioned a lot during the conversation today, is adopting policies that facilitate infrastructure deployment and create a sustainable investment climate. Many countries, beyond India, have adopted right-of-way policies to ease deployment of infrastructure in the sector. However, in several instances, effective implementation is yet to be seen. Implementation of rights-of-way presents one of the main challenges in rolling out telecommunication infrastructure in many countries. It's important that policies apply to both base stations and small cells, as small cells are going to be important in realizing the full potential of 5G. Small cells deployment will be important in urban areas with high population densities, as operators will have to densify the network with small cells to deliver the 5G downlink and uplink data rates. Policymakers across the globe are grappling with the same issues as you are doing in India to ensure approval processes for the timely large-scale deployment of small cells are not seen as a handbrake on the role of 5G. The GSMA, in conjunction with COAI, has recently published a report entitled Paving the Way for 5G Readiness in India, a guide for effective policymaking on small cell deployments, which provides examples of good practices of small cell deployment from around the world, such as examples from the EU, Japan, Singapore, UK, and US. After I've finished, I'll provide a link to the report in the chat, so if any of you want to find a little bit more about those good practices which may be helpful in India, then that might be helpful to you. As we've heard, the deployment of 5G puts an enormous CapEx and OpEx burden on mobile operators. So operators in many markets are therefore entering into network sharing arrangements to bring down each company's costs and achieve economies of scale. Flexibility to establish network sharing infrastructure on a voluntary basis may significantly save costs, enhance efficiency, and be helpful, especially in promoting connectivity in rural and remote areas. I'm not going to go into any of these others. I'm happy to talk about them later or with anyone who wants to follow up on it. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So 2021 has seen new developments and innovation in all areas of mobile digital infrastructure. While 2022 will see some existing trends continue to run their course, new themes will also emerge. Therefore, I thought it'd be interesting to highlight 5 trends to watch in 2022. So the first one I'd like to highlight is that 2021 saw the highest number of spectrum assignments in a single year since 2017, when the first 5G auctions took place. We believe momentum will continue in 2022 as plans to release 5G spectrum have been announced in 20 countries so far, with many markets already in the consultation process. More regulators, as we see in India, will release spectrum throughout the year. Auctions will continue to take place across all 5G bands, low, mid, and high bands, and all regions, making 5G a global focus. Assignments of spectrum in millimeter wave bands are also on the rise, with rollouts and adoptions making progress on the millimeter wave as the millimeter wave ecosystem matures. Secondly, We expect Open RAN will remain one of the highest profile network technologies of 2022. While with Open RAN still in its infancy, we believe this will be a year of continual learnings driven by new testing labs funded by governments or industry, supplier partnerships and operator deployments that deliver best practices and highlight where Open RAN makes sense. However, it's important to note that against a massive install base of proprietary RAN gear, it will take Open RAN many years to make a significant impact. Thirdly, network slicing has been heralded as a prominent feature of 5G. Although slicing is possible on 4G, LTE, and 5G non-standalone, its benefits can only be fully realized with 5G standalone. According to the GSMA Intelligence Operators in Focus research in 2021, on an enterprise survey, 20% of operators already positioned 5G network slicing capabilities as a primary 5G value proposition. The fourth one, edge computing has moved from concept to deployments as new use cases demand a more decentralized approach to computing and networking than a traditional fully cloud-based model. Edge networking can improve latency for services and minimize backhaul costs. According to GSMA's Enterprise Opportunities 21 service, over the next 2 years, 51% of operators see on-site edge computing with access to the public network as a key means of serving enterprise clients' requirements for private networks. Operators are therefore likely to be looking to partner for public and private mobile edge computing to deliver a wide range of use cases. And finally, climate-related activities in the telecom sector has accelerated markedly over the last 18 months. However, setting a company on a downward path of energy consumption and ultimately net zero emissions is complex. A range of new technologies to lessen energy consumption have reached commercial deployment stage, which we can expect to see in 2022. For example, AI-powered sleep rates, RAN upgrades to multi-antennae, passive site improvements such as moving from lead acid to lithium-ion batteries, smarter network planning. So I've raced through a lot of information, and if anyone would like to learn more about the points I've discussed, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'd be more than happy to expand on this further. So finally, thank you once again for having this opportunity to speak at this amazing conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet, for insights on 5G and key trends on mobile digital infrastructure. Thank you very much once again. Next with us is Mr. Jack Hayden, Head of Research, APAC Tower Exchange. Mr. Hayden works closely with operators, regulators, investors, and vendors for M&A roundup of all major tower deals, interviews with disruptive influential industry leaders, and updates on new technology and business models that are changing the TowerCo DNA. He's an expert in facilitating useful connections and bringing communities together to drive real change in the industry. Over to you, Jack.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Is it possible to bring up my slides just before I get going? But yeah, I'm very happy to be here with you all today. Thank you very much to DIPA for inviting me, and looking forward to presenting an international perspective on the evolution of TowerCos. So if you could just move to the next slide, please, Ashish. Just quickly to introduce Tower Exchange. So we essentially provide accurate and in-depth information to help you navigate the global tower industry. So we're speaking on a daily basis with TowerCos, with operators, with investors, with regulators, and all sorts of vendors and service providers from around the world to kind of collect information and then present it back to the industry. So we do this in a number of ways. We do it through research in our quarterly journal, which is published 4 times a year. We have a TowerCo league table, so we track every TowerCo in the world, break it down by country. You can see who owns what, where. We host annual meetups with the industry, so we bring everybody in the ecosystem together. And we also have kind of a vendor directory. We interview people on our website, we break news. So yeah, today I'm going to offer you a few international examples of kind of how tower companies are transforming to offer a fuller range of services and assets to facilitate digital transformation. And just to give you an idea of where it's come from, it is from all of those kind of areas that I just outlined. So the way that we kind of see the evolution really is towercos moving into two directions from their core sort of tower and rooftop business. So we see them moving into new services and new assets as well. And this chart is something that we've put together to try and kind of illustrate that. Some of these are definitely kind of further ahead than others. So you know, in the idea of like kind of data and monitoring systems, this is something towercos have been doing for a while, being able to capture these kind of insights and use them to improve efficiencies at the sites themselves. Some of them, you know, maybe a little bit further away. So network as a service or edge computing is kind of on towercos' minds, and they're trying to think about how they fit into that ecosystem, but still working out the details a little bit. So yeah, I think if we just talk a little bit maybe about what's driving this and what some of the reasons for this evolution are. I think the first one, if we could move to the next slide, please, Ashish, that'd be great. So yeah, one of the reasons I think is 5G. Operators need to cut costs, and part of the reasons for this is they're being faced with the rollout of 5G and continued rollout of 4G, and just general rising kind of network costs. So towercos have demonstrated their value in their core passive infrastructure offering as a neutral host, and they really want to kind of extend these relationships into new assets and services. I think operators are seeing that as a way of reducing, you know, their capex and their opex as well. But these cost-cutting goals are also driving consolidation in the industry, which I think a lot of you guys in India will know about. So with that consolidation on the operator side of things, towercos end up losing out because when parallel infrastructure is decommissioned, they end up kind of with their tenancy ratios decreasing, the profitability of their sites decreasing, and you know, their overall kind of revenue and valuations decreasing as well. And they therefore need to protect against this by moving into these additional services. And I can share some examples of where we've seen that from some of these kind of towercos here in a second. Also from a towerco perspective, when we're talking about 5G rollout, much of the infrastructure involved in urban densification that's required to roll the 5G network out efficiently, it's very different to kind of a macro site where it's quite easy to host multiple tenants, to have that kind of infrastructure shared. When it comes to street furniture, to kind of rooftop sites, to other urban environments, they need to think about different ways of making the sites profitable, where the tenancies that you can fit on them just from a practical standpoint is a little bit lower. They really need to evolve and become more flexible to be able to support operators with urban densification. And just thinking of additional services there, we've seen kind of working with municipalities on air sensors, on kind of like advertising, public Wi-Fi, electric vehicle charging, which has been touched on previously in this event. So yeah, that's something I think that's one driver of this change. I think the second one is just an increase in sharing overall. So the ambitions for operators to reduce capex and opex is definitely starting to outweigh their reluctance to share equipment. Telcos want to be seen as partners here for sure. And with RAN and active equipment sharing gaining momentum, if decommissioning due to consolidation is one threat that we just touched on, the threat to the core telco business model that's posed by antenna sharing is definitely even more significant. So if antenna sharing does end up taking off between operators, from a towerco perspective, they really need to own these antennas and diversify their offering to sustain and increase their growth as well. I think the next thing that I would point to is the new design of radio networks that with kind of the growing trend of Open RAN. It's going to create more competition on the hardware and the software side of things, but this decoupling will mean that we really need a new vendor category to emerge as an integrator. I think towercos really see themselves as being the perfect kind of, imperfect place to fill that role. So that's another driver of why we're seeing these additional services and assets to support digital transformation. So just to point to a couple of examples from across the world, from some of the companies that we speak with on a regular basis, I think DAS Solutions, I picked Wireless Infrastructure Group here because they're a company that we've spoken to recently about this, but I could have picked any number of towercos. I think kind of indoor networks are definitely kind of an area that lots of towercos are moving into. To use an example a little bit more local to Asia, with Central Tama in Indonesia, they were acquired by EdgePoint Infrastructure last year, and one of the key reasons for that was the strength of their indoor solutions. So yeah, that's definitely something that a lot of towercos are looking at moving into. Crown Castle is another one that I wanted to point to. So on the small cell and fiber side of things, Crown Castle ended 2020 with around 50,000 small cells. They currently sit at about 120,000 following some deals that they've conducted with T-Mobile and Verizon. So pretty significant numbers there. It actually ends up being that 70% of their total small cell volume has been booked in the last 12 months. And Crown Castle are one of the firms that are really kind of like leading in this area. So for such a significant increase for them, it points that that there definitely is appetite amongst operators, and towercos that are able to assist with small cells have a pretty significant growth opportunity. But I wanted to use this example specifically because Verizon and Swift had previously merged and were decommissioning sites where they both had antenna, and this really had an impact on Crown Castle's, well, it would have had an impact on Crown Castle's revenue. But their commitment to small cells as a strategy here has enabled them to get a net positive out of that deal. By the time that you kind of consider the decommissioning plus this new kind of on-port. So if they hadn't been, prepared with these additional services, it might not have been so easy for them to have dealt with that financial loss. I think outside of consolidation, this just shows how important creative solutions are, maybe when it comes to contract renegotiations, pricing structures, and some of the trade-offs that you can expect there. But back to Crown Castle quickly. So lots of, on the fiber side of things, lots of towercos have said fiber is about kind of a necessity in the past. I think that consensus is changing. Crown Castle, Protelindo, again from Indonesia, the largest independent towerco there, another good example of this. They see the same returns in fiber. They see it being the similar model as kind of neutral hosts and the opportunity for co-locations, and they see it as a real driver for growth. There are a few question marks around whether small cells will be used outside, which is one of the kind of maybe a counterpoint to what I just said there. So far, all 5G investment that we're seeing in Europe has been on a macro layer. But if the use case for small cells does continue to pick up and they are expected to be used more frequently for outside networks, owning fiber is going to be really important in terms of connecting them up. So I think just being able to support 5G, again, their fiber and small cells, if they do evolve as we're expecting, will be very, very important. Conscious I'm perhaps going a little bit long here, so I'll try and get through the next ones reasonably quickly. So IoT and smart cities. This is actually something that I think India is doing a really, really good job in. Normally when I run this presentation, I do use Indus Towers and the work that they've been doing on smart cities as my example here. But with the brief of an international perspective, I've picked Task, who are until recently a pretty small towerco that have recently moved into 3 new markets in the Middle East, or they're expecting to move in there very soon with some acquisitions. And they're also keen to position themselves as an enabler of the multitude of smart city projects and mega projects that are happening across the Middle East. To touch on Cellnex quickly, Cellnex actually kind of last year had a pretty big landmark deal with Qualcomm in Poland. So it was an instance of an independent telco acquiring active equipment from an operator. First time that that's happened. So from speaking with Cellnex, we've understood that they're getting a lot of very kind of like interested operators kind of wanting to understand more about how that deal with Polkomtel is working. So it definitely shows that there's an appetite, at least to explore that in Poland. The Cellnex's approach is that if you own the RAN, you can share the RAN, similar to how you share the passive equipment, and you can access the same efficiencies there. And it's another opportunity for MNOs to offload assets to towercos and then share it with multiple operators. Owning the RAN and managing it for one tenant is obviously a revenue source in itself, but the really key thing here is encouraging other operators to use that RAN as well. So I think that's a big kind of like focus for Cellnex at the moment. And then finally, just to touch on edge computing, I believe we use American Tower as the example here. They've spent billions of dollars on acquiring companies that have proficiency in data centers, really see it as kind of like a key diversifying element for them. And I think the main thing with edge computing is that kind of towercos, it definitely is a little bit further away. American Tower definitely doing some interesting work, but definitely I would say one of the firms leading the pack here. And I think most towercos, probably American Tower included, are just trying to kind of work out exactly the role that they play in edge computing and provision of that. So yeah, that's it for me on an international perspective. I hope those examples and case studies were useful in terms of kind of framing what we've been discussing today against how infrastructure providers are evolving to support 5G across the world. And really appreciate again the invitation from the team at DIPA to join today. So thank you very much. I'll put my email address in the chat if anybody wants to kind of learn more about Tower Exchange or has any questions about any of the examples that I've shared. Please don't hesitate to get in touch and hopefully speak with some of you soon.
Thank you, Jack. Fairly interesting session. Moving on to our last segment of the evening, we have On State Perspective. Joining us today to share state's perspective, we have Niranjan Kumar Arya, Chief Secretary, Government of Rajasthan. Prior to becoming Chief Secretary, he's had multiple roles in the state of Rajasthan. He's held diverse positions for the state in the areas of finance, excise, taxation, transportation, agriculture, and planning department, amongst others. Sir, may we please request you to share your perspective on digital infrastructure vision for your state, Rajasthan. Thank you very much.
Good evening to everybody. First of all, let me thank the organizers for having called me and given me a chance to speak. I would like to, first of all, congratulate DIPA, that is DIPA, and its members for having reached an important milestone in their journey. It is actually seeing is believing the kind of revolution of the telecom sector in India and in the States. It has really changed the entire gamut of life. And for that, I think DIPA has also been doing a great job in the field of policies, regulatory and operational issues, particularly in the telecom infrastructure domain. And I'm sure DIPA will continue to play a very important role in the policy and regulatory domain at the state and of course at the same time at the central level. We all know that entire globe, not only India, but the entire globe has seen the COVID-19. And with the widespread outbreak of COVID-19, nations across the globe are struggling to counter the threat posed by the pandemic. Pandemic has also been affecting economic and financial conditions worldwide, with India being no exception, and so is the case of the states. Sectors such as ITs, electronics, automobiles, entertainment, transport, tourism, and of course exports have seen tough times and are in a way in trouble due to the disruption in the global supply chain and their routine operations. During this critical lockdown period, this sector, that is the telecom sector, has really proved to be the backbone of the country to ensure people remain socially connected, information is processed, disseminated, and I cannot imagine had this revolution of telecom sector not been there in India, or for that matter in the entire globe, and we had this COVID, people were closed in their house, there were lockdowns, there were curfews, there were all possible measures to control the COVID. And if this could not have been there, then what would have been the life we can imagine? Telecom networks have also enabled various sectors to remain connected and functioning. We all know that the move to work from home, how could it be possible without it? So the work from home can be sustained, and facilities like online classes, now this is a new concept everywhere. People don't go to colleges, to schools, teachers don't go to schools or colleges, but they do their job. Students are being imparted their education, it is through online, and that is because of this sector. Online payments, we all know what is the importance of online payment in the current day's business scenario. And they are all continue to be available to the citizens even during the COVID-19 pandemic. I have no doubt, there cannot be any doubt in saying that telecom infrastructure providers and their field engineers and the technicians are playing a crucial, stellar role during this crisis situation when the uses of telecom services are increasing day by day due to the work from home, online education, video conferencing. I would like to put on this record that at the moment I'm talking through VC. For the last, I think, 1.5 years, I have been here on this post. I've been taking video conferencing every day. So throughout the period, my entire work system, my entire process, my entire monitoring, my entire coordinating work has happened just because of this sector. Every day I take VCs, connecting all my district collectors, taking their notes, monitoring their activities, instructing them, guiding them, and making the state go further in the development. So this video conferencing, and Mr. Dua is sitting here, he is a witness himself that the state level committee of this telecom thing, I have had 2-3 VCs with Mr. Dua, and we have tried to sort out the problems which the sector is facing in the state. So now that you have video conferencing among the peers and increasing use of digital services, demanding faster and continuous upgradation, additional telecom infrastructure to cater to the requirement of upcoming sectors. Despite various issues and challenges faced by the telecom industry, also in maintaining uninterrupted telecom operations, it is standing tall, and our frontline warriors from telecom infrastructure providers are working outside tirelessly to ensure the rest of the country and the rest of the people can work safe inside. We have been able to do what we are doing, what we will be doing just because of this sector, and there is a high level of appreciation for the people who are engaged, who are involved in the sector and doing their work for us. I would also like to put forth for the participants and the entire telecom fraternity that since this segment, as the announcer has just said, that it is a state's perspective, so let me now touch some issues regarding or in relation to the perspective of the state. Government of Rajasthan is committed to industrial development, including the telecom industry in this state. As these days, every state, not only Rajasthan, but we can see in India that every state government is highly committed and making all effort to see that particularly the telecom industry goes up in their state, because that is the enabling industry. Very keen on taking the policy initiatives to revive the industries and investor sentiments to bring in further investment in the state. Also, I would like to mention that recently we have had Invest Rajasthan. It's a kind of summit, you can say, but because of COVID, that could not take place. We have slightly postponed the event, but this time we have, for the first time, earlier what used to happen that there would be one event in the capital, and that would be Invest Rajasthan, Resurgent Rajasthan, or maybe the Vibrant, whatever it is. And there the all industries people will come and they will commit something, and that would be a summit. But this time what we have done is that we have gone to the districts. Every district has organized and held the events of Invest Rajasthan. And there also this sector has played a very, very important role, because industrialists from across the world, maybe from the South India, maybe from the Eastern India, could not come to Rajasthan, could not come to, let's say, Jaipur, to Jodhpur, to Ajmer, to Bikaner. But since there was an investment district summit at each district level, everybody was connected, and we could really corner or garner about 10 lakhs crores of commitment for the industrial initiatives in the state. And needless to say, a lot of credit goes to this sector. Had this not been there, I wonder how could we do it. As far as the telecom infrastructure industry is concerned, I fully agree that there is a need for rapid scale up in telecom infrastructure and enabling policy which can promote rapid development of new technologies, including 5G, which my previous speaker was referring to. Now, here also I would like to touch upon the salient feature of my state. Rajasthan, in terms of geographical area, is the largest state of India. And you have the largest state geographically, and therefore the challenges, therefore the problems are also enormous in order to see that the entire area is, covered by network. So the companies, the private sectors is facing some problems, and in that committee where Mr. Dua and all the companies and all my officers are there, we always try to ensure that their problems are minimized or removed or done away with. We are already in processes of amendment of existing policy framework in coordination with the industry led by DIPA to boost deployment of digital communication infrastructure in the state of Rajasthan. I would like to mention 2-3 things more regarding Rajasthan only. That is, Rajasthan is the first state across India to notify the right-of-way rules for the telecom infrastructure dated 6th Feb in 2017, with alignment of the state rules with the DOT guidelines of 2016. We all know that when you go for the expansion and when you lay down your lines and everything, then you always face the problem of right-of-way. Governments, were not able to smoothly implement or execute the process, and therefore we need to have a mechanism, we need to have a framework. The government of Rajasthan has rightly issued right-of-way notified rules, through which now we are going ahead, and I think we will be able to sort out all problems related to this issue. Further, Rajasthan became number one, or maybe the first state, not number one, but the first state for issuing an order to implement Rajasthan township policy, which states that any new colony that is going to come up in the entire state that will be set up in Rajasthan must have a separate area to set up mobile towers. Throughout the country, I think everywhere I can imagine that putting mobile towers has been a challenge, more so in the urban areas. So, and these colonies are also coming in the urban areas. So unless you have a regulation so that you have a separate dedicated place earmarked by the colonizer or maybe the development urban government authorities. So now we have a set of rules saying that you must have a separate area to set up mobile towers. By launching of single window online portal for telecom towers, the government of Rajasthan has ensured the quick clearances of the tower applications in the stipulated time frame. Every meeting, whenever Mr. Dua and their party and the teams are talking to me, there are certain issues with the collectors, maybe the land issues, maybe the revenue matters. So I think majority of the problems are coming from the collectors, and that is for the revenue, and that's for the land only. So we are trying hard, and for that only I think we have now launched a single window online portal so that the telecom towers issues can be addressed properly. To address the local operational issues, long pending tower and EV permissions, alignment of district authorities with state policy, Rajasthan government has constituted district level telecom committee. And I'm also happy to tell you that all my collectors are regularly taking this committee meetings. If there are 2-3 collectors are not taking this meeting, Mr. Dua would highlight it, and then I would certainly get it done. So we have been doing it because ultimately the matter has to be sorted out at the grassroots level, that is the district level. Here in Jaipur, in my meeting, we have policy decisions, we can instruct, we can direct, we can issue notifications, but at the collectors level, at the ground level, things have to happen. And therefore, this district level telecom committee is very important. And under the chairmanship of district magistrate, I think these committees are working and they will solve the problems every quarter. Government of Rajasthan has ensured that telecom remains exempted from lockdown restrictions. I mean, I don't have to tell this because I have already mentioned this, and they were not under the control or under the lockdown regulations. They were absolutely exempted, and telecom field engineers and technicians have unhindered access to the telecom infrastructure for necessary operations and maintenance. I think that was required, that has to be done, and this was done. This is a critical given that on ground staff need continued access to towers for maintenance to identify potential risks and refueling for towers and using diesel gensets. Also, I need to mention that we have also designated a dedicated nodal officer from state government for handling telecom related matters on priority basis, who can be contacted by the telecom infrastructure provider in the event of any difficulty. And his access, his number, his approach has been widely known to everybody. To any company, any stakeholder has any problem, he can always contact the nodal officer at his level. If problems are not addressed, then he can always talk to me or to the district magistrate. But we all ensure that the nodal officer must be in touch with the authorities and problems are sorted out. So all in all, I think we are also working in collaboration with DIPA for bringing out detailed guidelines for utilization of street furniture and revision of the existing rentals or uses of government electricity poles for laying overground infrastructure. I think Rajasthan government, as I mentioned in all my statements, that we are making all efforts, and we hope that with the continuous support and association of DIPA and the private stakeholders and telecom sector companies, the telecom scenario in Rajasthan will certainly improve, and it will go a long way to make the life easier here in this state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Moving on, we have with us to share a vision on the state of Punjab, Mr. Tejveer Singh, IS Principal Secretary, Investment Promotion, Commerce and Industries and Government Reforms, representing the state of Punjab. Prior to this, he served as Principal Secretary to Chief Minister Punjab and was responsible for administrative reforms, Personal and General Administrative Department. He has also served as Director Information and Public Relations and Principal Secretary to the Chief Minister. He is interested in public policy and has also taught the discipline to civil servants at the National Academy. Sir, may we please request you to say a few words on the need of strong digital infrastructure, especially at the grassroots levels.
Thank you. Honorable Chief Guest, Union Minister of State for Communication, Shri Devi Singh Chauhan ji, Chairman TRI, Shri P.D. Waghela, Secretary Telecom, Government of India, Shri K. Rajaraman, Chief Secretary Rajasthan, Shri Niranjan Arya, Chairman DIPA, Mr. Akhil Gupta, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to be with you today in this important event to share Punjab's perspective on creating a robust digital infrastructure to usher in a digital transformation in the country. Let me begin by congratulating DIPA and all the distinguished speakers for a very informative